This is KLEAN Radio.
Welcome everybody out there listening on our flagship station 790 KABC, on our new station XM channel 243, the last channel.
We actually made it to the last channel on
the XM
Sirius
dial,
XM,
and that's quite the accomplishment. And also on the World Wide Web at KLEANradio.com. That's KLEAN with a K. I'd like to welcome everybody out there that is listening and listening for the first time. We are a show about addiction and recovery. In the studio with me is the amazingly talented Andrew Spanswick, owner-operator, KLEAN Treatment Center.
Well, thank you, Judah. That's, I think, the best compliment you've given me yet.
Yeah, why not? And tell people a little bit about yourself. You've been in the industry for 22 years.
I think it's almost 23 now.
23 years.
Yeah, so
you have a different approach than most people.
Yeah, I started doing really adult primary acute care psychiatric work. And then after several years, 10 years or so of working in that business, I realized that the approaches to substance abuse weren't working. And that seeing substance abuse as just something separate or that shouldn't be treated wasn't the right way to go. And then when I went into the substance abuse world, I found out that they had little regard for the psychiatric community. So we've been working really hard with KLEAN as a company to integrate both psychiatric care and substance abuse and provide better outcomes and make people feel better, not just in the short term by getting sober and all that comes with that and all the positive rewards of getting sober and being in recovery, but also dealing with any underlying psychiatric issues or depression or anxiety or major diseases like bipolar illness or other things that might precipitate the use of drugs or alcohol.
Because we hear so much about relapse all the time. People are constantly talking about relapse. And obviously at the treatment center, we got a lot of people that have relapsed. And one of the things we like to try to figure out is why you're relapsing. It's not always just because you couldn't stop.
Right. I mean, there's things called triggers, as people that are familiar with sort of the recovery world know, things that will sort of induce people to feel like they need to use again. And there's been a lot of studies on this. So, for example, if somebody's addicted to crack cocaine and they've been off it for over a year, you can still just put a crack cocaine pipe in the room and their brain will act like they're about to smoke crack cocaine again. And so seeing that type of trigger, that mechanism, the crack pipe actually activates the brain to want to smoke crack. So it's hard to really deal with addiction without realizing that it's sort of a chronic, long-term issue that you have to deal with. Unfortunately, we don't have the ability right now to completely rewire the brain, so we don't get that kind of triggering mechanism. Although they are doing some work on that.
And in Iron Man 3, they were able to do it.
In Iron Man 3, they were able to do it.
Because I saw that this weekend, because last week's guest was my friend Ashley Hamilton, who's in it. He was amazing in it. And
they have found one thing that does work. The only thing they found so far that really works well is exercise. Exercise actually rewires the brain better than anything, better than most medications.
By the way, let me give out the number. The number here is 800-222-5222. That's 800-222-5222. And if you still go by the numbers, it's 800-ABC-KABC. I haven't done that in a while.
You haven't, but you did it well.
I did it well. No, but I mean, I also haven't used a phone where I...
You haven't used a phone in a while?
Well, I haven't where you type in the actual letters instead of the, yeah. But one of the things I wanted to wish everybody out there, happy Mother's Day. Lord knows when I was drinking, I put my mother through a lot of trauma.
A lot of bad Mother's Days.
A lot of bad Mother's Days.
You owe her like a Mother's Week.
Yes, and I owe her a Mother's years.
Years.
And, it's there's so many women out there that are listening that, we would love to hear from you, either if you are sober, and you have kids, and I'd love to hear those stories, the success stories.
Yeah, I'd love to hear those.
And also, I know there are a lot of women out there that are struggling with alcoholism, with active alcoholism, that, it's hard, Andrew. I mean, it's like they want to get sober, but what do you do with the kids?
Yeah, a lot of people are worried about getting treatment because they feel this primary responsibility to the children. Yeah. At the same point, there's lots of ways to deal with that and still get help. There's a variety of levels of care, from inpatient residential care and then someone else looks after your children. But also there's intensive outpatient care, which means that you can come in during the day, get treatment, be drug tested, and still be able to look after your children.
And I've heard I've heard a few stories recently from women that I know that they've actually, lost their kids. They have to have monitors. They have to have, all of these things. And
well, a lot of people are also dealing with, child services have stepped in for one reason or another. Either kids aren't going to school or,
Right.
Typical problems with people that have a drug or alcohol problem is they tend to miss appointments and or they get reported by a family member or neighbor for neglecting their kids. People that have real problems with alcohol and other drugs will pass out a lot, leave their children unattended, and that's where most of the tragedies really happen.
But, so here's the thing. So if you're out there and you're going through these things, there is hope. The only, if you deal with your alcoholism, things are going to get better in one way or the other, or your addiction. Things are
right. It's hard for them to get worse.
Right. That's exactly right. But people do let them continually get worse.
Right, because they think that a lot of people that are actively in addiction feel that there's no way out, and they felt that whatever addiction, the reason they were first using a substance was helping them at first, and then they get a point where they're just trying to stay even or kind of okay, and then they see that addiction actually becomes an additional problem to all their other problems, and they spend a lot of time just trying to stay normal, and it's very, very difficult life.
Do you think it's in a sense a little more difficult for women who are trying to get sober in this regard, that have kids? There's more of a stigma, there's more of a judgment, that sadly.
Well, I mean, it is Mother's Day, and then no disrespect to mothers, but I think fathers are equally important. And, it's tough for
We'll talk about them on Father's Day. Yeah.
We'll talk about them on Father's Day.
Today we're focusing on
If you're
mothers.
a father, you've got to wait till Father's Day for us to address your issues. No, but it's really, addiction traditionally is a family problem. Most addicts and alcoholics have addicts and alcoholics as parents. Or they've been exposed to a lot of other addicts and alcoholics, or they're in a community of friends of addicts and alcoholics. So because you tend to hang out with people that do what you do, it makes it easier to justify. And thinking Alcoholics Anonymous, they like to call that, hanging out with lower companions, people that are worse than you, so you can justify that your problem is not so bad.
I was that person.
You were that person.
I was the lower. Yeah, I was.
You were the lower person.
Because I always hear people say that
Right.
when in 12 Steps or and they always go, I was hanging out with lower companions, and I'm
Right.
like, hey, bro, you were the lower companion. That it wasn't like I needed a seek.
I didn't know there was a bottom.
Yeah,
I didn't know there was the award of the final.
And if you just tuned in, you are listening to KLEAN Radio. That's KLEAN with a K. The number here is 800-222-5222. That's 800-222-5222. I love what we have going on with Facebook. During the week, we're constantly getting questions people are asking us. We're constantly getting posts that people are asking us. And one of the things I talked about this week on KLEAN was that I made a comment that, treating alcoholism with just therapy is like going to a gunfight with a knife.
Right.
And
Not a popular post.
it was very popular, but I got some people disagreeing with me, saying, why are you saying something bad about therapy? That was the fun,
Right,
and
the
I was
takeaway,
like,
yeah.
and I was saying just therapy.
Right.
I was saying go to the 12 steps. And that's one of the things that we talk about a lot of KLEAN is that.
Well, also medication.
Right.
I think that, therapy is such a broad term these days also. I mean, it used to be that therapy implied that it was mostly coming from a psychologist or a psychiatrist, both of who obviously have doctorate degrees. Nowadays, you can call yourself a life coach or a counselor and have no therapeutic training whatsoever. And then we have a whole bunch of mid-range therapists that are licensed, like clinically licensed social workers, and masters in family therapy, and other types of psychologists. So, and there are people that specialize in different things and have different backgrounds. My big thing with therapy alone is that it traditionally it's good, but it's not as good as the combination of therapy with proper medical review and if needed psychiatric medication.
And the 12 steps, they all could work
Right.
together.
And
Yeah.
certainly they can all work together. I mean, certainly having a supportive environment, a group of people that understand your problem, and people that you can reach out to when your therapist isn't available is a great thing. And also, if you don't have money, the amount of treatment. We provided a fair amount of scholarship and free treatment at KLEAN. In fact, I think about 10% of all our beds are at any one time given away for free. But that's obviously, there's more demand than I can possibly fill. So, it's important that people realize that don't have money, that, they're going to have some initial detox services available through the federal government and through Medi-Cal, if you're in California, or Medicaid, or different social systems in different states. But that long-term therapeutically, you're not going to get the support that is really, I think, needed. And hopefully, as we get out of this idea of Obamacare just being, they call that health care reform, and it hasn't reformed anything in healthcare. All it's doing is doing some health insurance reform.
Right.
And all that's really doing is shifting the burden from the federal government for paying for Medicaid and Medi-Cal onto private individuals to opt into an insurance program. So really all it is health insurance reform, which is good in some ways. I think it's great. I mean, it's going to put 40 million people back into some type of coverage. But most people that I know that are, your average guy out there working that even has health insurance, doesn't have great health insurance.
Right.
And the one great thing that's happening that was passed a few years back and is just coming into effect is something called the Parity Act, which is forcing all insurance companies that carry a policy for employers that have more than 50 employees to have mental health coverage in their policy. That's going to make a big difference. That's going to put a lot of people in a place where they can actually access benefits and insurance. And we work really hard at that. I think there's like 274 different insurance companies and what are called EOBs, explanation of benefits, that we work with weekly to try to help people and facilitate people out there that need help them actually access their benefits and fight that battle with the insurance company, because it's a full-time job.
But I don't think most people out there realize that sometimes their insurance actually does cover treatment.
Yeah, well, often they'll call and the insurance company will say no because they don't know the right things to say. So, it takes initial assessment by a clinician to be able to then speak properly with what's called the utilization review people and the pre-cert people at your insurance company. And that, a lot of them, their default is sort of no, nothing's covered. But
right.
But if you can present it properly, especially if there's medical issues associated with addiction
and
problems.
For people to fight for you, because people out
an
there,
advocate. Yeah, an advocate.
And I don't think a lot of people, I don't think most people realize that, because it's not like when you sign up for your insurance, they say, you're covered for rehab.
Right.
They want to sort of distract you, sort of say.
That's in the fore font on page 187 of your explanation of
benefits. Right, because they don't want to have to pay for it.
Well, it is expensive for a lot of insurance companies, and it suffers what's called a high elasticity of demand, which means that basically that if services are offered for that type of problem, a huge number of people will all of a sudden take it. Whereas if something that has the lowest elasticity of demand, like appendectomies, if insurance companies say, we'll pay 100% for all appendectomies, well, there's only so many appendectomies every year.
Right.
So they can actually calculate how much they have to spend. So it's one of those things that insurance companies are scared of because there really is so much demand for services. I mean, we're in basically an epidemic of prescription drug abuse right now that we've never seen before. And, we've had a uptake of the use of heroin. Heroin's become much more popular again. And a lot of that's because people can't afford the pills that they were addicted to, like oxycodone and other, like Roxy's and other types of opiates.
By the way, if you just tuned in, you are listening to KLEAN Radio. Give us a call at 800-222-5222. That's 800-222-5222. If you're out there and you're struggling right now and you're going through a rough time, we understand. And this is a very hard thing sometimes to talk about. It is Mother's Day. We're going to try to get you into treatment. If you do need help, we'll try to figure out a way to get you help tonight. And so give us a call, because if you're a mother, or if you're somebody out there, or it doesn't matter who you are, it's just, you're probably not seeing a way of hope.
So, what did you put your mother through, Judah?
I put my mother through many nights of not sleeping. I mean, and that was, that's like the hardest thing. I think when you get, that's the greatest gift you could give your parents when you're sober. And is that sleep, is that my mother doesn't worry that next phone call is going to be her son telling her that, the police telling her that I'm dead.
Right. And your parents never gave up on you.
My
Which is
parents
amazing.
never gave up on me, and this is why we get along so well. Because one of the reasons, but we have that belief.
We have one reason we get along.
Right, but we have that belief. We don't believe in tough love.
Right.
We believe in a certain amount of tough love, but we don't believe in kicking a person out on the street.
Yeah, we believe sort of in setting limits,
Right.
and certainly not enabling addicts. But it's important also to let people know that you love them and you care about them.
And that's something I
that
tell
you'll be
people
there
all the
for them.
time, is that as long as somebody's alive, there's a chance. So my father, no matter what, if I would call him up, no matter where I was, Florida, Arizona, he would say, the offer for rehab stands.
Right.
That they would figure out a way to put me into a bed in rehab, insurance or whatever it was, they would figure out a way. And that really saved my life. They weren't giving me money. They weren't doing that stuff. But I always knew I had.
Well, whatever you didn't con out of them.
Right. That's it. That's exactly right. But they always knew that, and I always knew that. And I think, we always talk about consequences for addicts, right? And I think that's the worst thing with an addict. Because what kind of consequence can you give to somebody that's killing themselves?
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. That someone that's at the level of addiction that you are, certainly at the point we're talking about, there really aren't too many consequences that are as bad as the addiction.
Right.
And someone that's really actively involved is spending 24 hours a day almost, quite literally, probably in their sleep and or when they're awake, actively pursuing satisfying that addiction. And so, there's really not much more of a hell you can put somebody in than that kind of situation.
And that's exactly right. And I think sometimes, and I think that's where, the mainstream, the public has this misunderstanding of addiction because they can't understand the consequences, because we live in a society full of consequences. Right. If you don't pay your bills, you lose your house, or it used to be the case anyways.
Well, part of the problem is the stigma that people will start using alcohol or drugs, or people that aren't addicts will start using alcohol and drugs, and they're able to stop easily. And they see it as sort of a time in their life, maybe when they were, exploring in excess,
right?
Or they were just having fun, just a phase, or it was just fun. And they don't understand that some people actually get hooked, and they get hooked for reasons that weren't related to fun. They get hooked because they have a problem with chronic pain, or that they started taking a medication that they themselves had a reaction to that normal people wouldn't, and then they have this constant craving to get more and more and more. And so there's a lot of judgment against people that are addicts, and that's not really unfortunate because, even if the person started, say, drinking because they were depressed, and that led into chronic use of alcohol, we should have more sympathy for the fact that they were depressed to begin with, and unfortunately didn't get access to mental health help to deal with the depression and self-medicated with alcohol.
Well, this is one of those things. We do live in a society where that sympathy, for some reason, when it comes to this stuff, and we talk about this a lot, we're coming up on a time, especially with the older generation that is abusing pills, that's abusing that. If we don't deal with the stuff now,
and not necessarily by their own fault.
Right.
We work with a lot of geriatrics, elderly patients.
Yes, let's change that name.
Well, it's technically geriatrics in the medical field.
We're going to change that.
Right, but okay, you're going to change that. Good luck.
Elderly-atrics, okay?
Elderly-atrics.
So that's what we're going with.
Elderly theatrics.
Yeah.
Anyway, but where, they've seen a lot of doctors, and they end up on 30 or 40 medications sometimes. And they become addicted to them, and they need them just to function daily. So often we'll deal with clients where we have to bring them in and sort of what we call baseline them, take them off all their medications except for the really crucial ones, and then slowly work back up into a regimen where they can actually function but still properly medicate their problems.
Let's go we have Shira in Sonoma, California. Welcome to KLEAN Radio, Shira.
Thank you. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm on my laptop phone, so.
That's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, great. So, thanks for taking my call. It's, like you said, it's Mother's Day, and I'm a mother, and for quite a while I've been the bad kind of mother, and my boyfriend left me I think he was doing an intervention, and basically he left me our place, but I have to get out by the end of the month if I don't go into treatment, and there's still no guarantees I'll come back.
Right. Why is it that you don't want to go into treatment?
Oh, no, I mean, I do now. It's that or being homeless, and I was telling a friend of mine, and she is a volunteer at one of the state-funded programs in her state, and she said it's primarily for people that are have been just released from prison, and not necessarily all of them, but a large percentage. And it's basically like jail. And it's like, so these are my options being, on the insurance that I have.
Where you're in Sonoma, California.
Yeah.
So we actually have people that can specialize and look at your insurance and see what other options you may have. And we'll put you on hold at some point at the end of this call and get you some help with that, the number of the person to call to review stuff for you. A lot of the state-run programs, you're right, do what they call diversion. So instead of keeping people in jail for drug-related offenses, they have these state-run rehabs. Some of them can be kind of rough, and some of them can be really very good. So it really depends on where you are. I'm not sure which one goes out of Sonoma. I'm not really familiar with that area as much.
Oddly enough, it is wine country.
It is wine country, yeah. Maybe you'll just end up with some pleasantly reforming drinkers instead of
Shira, what are you doing out there?
Hardcore heroin addicts.
I'm saying, what is your drug? Or are you drinking?
It's actually beer, and I know everybody says, like, oh, that's nothing, but I've been arrested 7 times for it, and
It's a lot of times.
Yeah, and I've had a DUI, and that was all in one state. So I moved back to California because I did a total geographic, and I got out of there. And then I came here, and I was still getting high on weed and drinking and driving because I didn't think, of course, it's not going to happen against me. Then I got into a hit and run, which I had to leave because I had an open container. So, and then I stopped for a while. That scared me, for 6 months.
Shira, if you could hold on a second, we got to go to a break, but we'll get right back to you after the break, okay?
Yeah, just hold on, and we'll continue talking.
So that's Shira from Sonoma, California. You're listening to KLEAN Radio. In the studio tonight with Andrew. It is Mother's Day, and I'd like to hear from mothers like Shira.
We've got a lot of great help for her, so I'm really looking forward to that conversation. So.
And so that was Shira. Hopefully there are mothers out there that could share the stories of hope with us. You are listening to KLEAN Radio. The discussion continues.
Are you struggling with an addiction that's ruining your life? Want to have a confidential conversation with a professional that will immediately assist you? Do you suspect a loved one is abusing drugs and would like a free drug testing kit and consultation? KLEAN Treatment Center is standing by right now to help those with addictions and the people who care about them. Call 888-601-6040. That's 888-601-6040. Or go to KLEAN Treatment Center, that's KLEAN with a K, KLEANTreatmentCenter.com.
Welcome back to KLEAN Radio. In the studio with Andrew Spanswick. But before the break, we had a call from Shira. We'll get back to her in a second, Andrew. She said something sort of funny that we hear this all the time. And, I say it sometimes because I'm an alcoholic. I'm one of the dying breed of just alcoholics. And people say, what'd you do? What was your drug? And I go, just alcohol.
Right. And they can't believe it.
Right.
Like,
but
really?
It's also like I feel like I'm apologizing for I'm sorry. I just drank.
All I did was drink. Right?
I just did the deadliest drug ever made.
Next to tobacco.
But Shira was saying, right. What Shira was saying about that people make fun of her for just drinking beer.
Right. Yeah. And it's funny because when I started with my psychiatric hospitals in New Orleans, I had this one patient that said that, she wasn't an alcoholic because all she drank was a beverage. And the beverage was beer.
Right.
Said, if you look a little closer, it says alcoholic beverage. But she was completely convinced it was just a beverage.
But it's exactly right. But there's so many people out there that are like that because they think that because there are commercials. Essentially, like if it's like Oxycontin,
Oxycodone,
Oxycodone. If there was a commercial like "Good Times with Friends, they remain special," and it was like for people would be like, "Oh, it's just a social drug," But
it's an interesting question if we legalized all drugs, if there would be stuff like that.
Yeah. Of course there would be commercials. There'd be heroin commercials. You'd have like the models.
I'm pretty sure that
France.
stuff would be regulated, but
you'd be surprised. Give it time.
We'd have the Joe Heroin Camel.
That's exactly right. But it is Mother's Day, and there's mothers out there struggling. We have Shira in Sonoma, California, that's making a mess of her life. Welcome back again, Shira.
Thank you.
What are we going to do about? So what type of? You do have insurance?
It's state funded insurance. So I've called over 100 treatment centers and either talked to them directly or left messages, and none of them take it, and they keep referring me. I've been more referred than I've actually gotten through to places. So,
Right.
It's really like it's a labyrinth of stress, because
Okay.
this is the time when, I don't need the stress, but yet, you have to do what you have to do to get the help.
Let's talk a little bit about do you mind me asking how old you are?
I'm 41,
41, and you've been drinking for how long?
8 years.
8 years. And how much do you think you drink a day?
Well, see, that's the thing. I mean, that's why it's so easy to fool myself that I don't have a problem, because number one, I'm a binge drinker.
Right.
And number two, my tolerance is so low, I can get completely, I can black out on 2 to 3 beers.
It's
But,
not the amount.
Yeah.
It's the
Go ahead.
tall cans, and they're only, I keep saying only, but it's 8%, and I'm thinking, well, wine's, 12, 13%, and whiskey's 40%, and but I black out every time. I don't remember what I said during a brownout. I, wake up, everybody, friends aren't returning calls, or no one's talking to me, and I'm like, what the hell's their problem? It's like,
Right.
I sent you a letter, and I said, I am the perfect deflector. If I could parlay that into a profession, I would be a multimillionaire.
Yeah, addicts are very cunning and talented. A beer is equal to an 8-ounce glass of wine, which is equal to a 1-ounce shot of alcohol or liquor. And normally you do see alcoholics progress from beer to wine to liquor because they don't want to consume so much fluid to get drunk. And that's why, you typically see the late-stage alcoholic move straight to liquor or vodka or something like that.
Have you tried the 12-step meetings, Shira?
I did, and I didn't feel like I fit in, and then of course I felt superior, and then I downplayed it, like they're too culty. I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid, and
She's
this
like
stuff.
basically describing alcoholism.
Right.
That's not ready to get.
For the people out there that
Yeah.
that are on the other side that
Yeah.
are dealing with someone that's an alcoholic, these are the sort of thoughts that go through an alcoholic's mind of, it's called denial, basically, is what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And then you have, another form of denial is narcissism, where you basically think that you're better than everyone else, and it's another way of projecting out your denial. So you're saying, and it's a defense mechanism so that you don't have to feel bad about yourself. It's a way to justify that you still don't have a problem and that, you can handle it, or it's going to go away by itself.
So you've been arrested 7 times?
Yeah, 7 times, and 5 of them have been dismissed. 1 expungable, but it's and then the DUI is the only one I claimed that I really deserve that one. Like, I earned that one.
Right, they were right.
1 to 7, she actually claimed.
And
Love
you
it.
have where are your kids now?
They haven't been with me since I got divorced about 10 years ago, and that's when I started drinking, because I didn't have the coping skills of supporting myself and the means to do that. And they went on vacation with their dad one summer, and I was in Sam's Club, and I saw this magnum of champagne for like some ridiculous price, like $5, and I was like, ooh, I want one. And it was so delicious.
And
I
10
just-
years later, 8 arrests, 7 arrests, and
7 arrests and
yeah.
almost 8. And if I didn't really flee from the scene, I would have been arrested, because I was not high on weed and drinking a beer, which was in my car.
Shira, we do try to scholarship people. We also, so if you go to our Facebook, our Facebook page, there's a few things you do have to do to try to get the scholarship.
Actually, it's on the actual treatment center
Okay,
page.
so go to KLEANTreatmentCenter.com.
Yeah, I actually sent you a letter right before the show. So
okay, great.
info@cleantreatment.org.com.
And we'll try to do what we can do. If it was up to Andrew, nobody would be paying for beds. But
Shira, the biggest thing I want to say to you before we have to go on to another call is that your first, you need to really realize that, even though you've gotten away with stuff and you admit to some stuff, that you do have an opportunity to get sober, even if it ends up being with a state facility.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of hope out there for you. If you can get through this, a lot of things will become much clearer. And all the problems that you're having may not all go away, but at least you'll be in a space where mentally you can deal with them. And at the end of that is a lot of progress and hope and happiness. And you're young, you have a lot of time in your life. If you can, get through this problem to really experience some wonderful things.
And and it's very interesting. It's like, so you've been to the 12-step meetings, people with cancer, right? Or people with AIDS or people with other diseases would kill to have the cure for alcoholism sometimes, that somehow,
the magical cure.
Go to the 12 steps, meetings, and you get to talk about yourself, you get to eat, and you get to laugh and have coffee, and that's part of the cure, but only alcoholics say, I don't like that. That's a little too much.
Right.
People with cancer,
they're looking for anything.
Right, they'll do anything. They'll be in tremendous
chemo
pain.
That makes them
right,
throw
the worst
up
pain, and they'll do anything. And they would kill to be able to treat their disease with the cures that we can do.
It's actually one of the strange evils of addiction is that it, in some ways, that it is painful in some ways. Although it is painful, but your mind tricks yourself into thinking it isn't.
Yeah.
Because, worrying about trial and going to court, possibly hurting or killing somebody or yourself, these are not small consequences for a certain behavior. So, you're looking at things that are really, really serious. And if you keep drinking and you don't deal with it, eventually you're going to run out of luck. So,
okay, Shira.
I think I'm already emotionally and spiritually bankrupt, and I'm just sick of myself, and this is it for me.
Well, hold on to that, because the scary thing sometimes is, and we see this all the time, is that you could keep digging your, I hate to say it, but you could keep digging that bottom worse, Andrew.
For a lot of addicts, the big thing is they wake up in the morning and they're like, oh, I actually feel good enough
they
to
brush
drink
it
or
off.
use today.
They brush it off. It's not as bad.
Right.
So
I don't feel sick today, so I can use. Thank God.
Shira, so you sent that essay in, right?
I sure did.
Okay, we're going to get back to you as soon as possible.
Yeah, we'll follow up with you. And best of luck tonight. And, do your best to take care of yourself. And I hope you can get some help soon.
Thanks a lot. And I always enjoy the show. And you made me feel better, so I appreciate that.
That was all Andrew, Shira. Thank you.
It's Judah humor. Come on.
And if you just tuned in, you are listening to KLEAN Radio. That's KLEAN with a K. Give us a call at
800. You had it all down.
800-222-5222. That's 800-222-5222.
We're going to go for the one show where you don't miss it once.
Yeah, it's progress, not perfection, as they
Exactly.
say. But it is Mother's Day. But one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was, because I got to tell you, we're all for a lot of things that help people out there get sober and stay sober. If you need to go to 12 steps, go for it. If you need to go to therapy, if rehab, all this stuff, we believe it could be combined, but it's your own road.
Unfortunately, a lot of people don't believe that. A lot of people in the therapeutic communities and people that own rehabs and then people that are exclusively in AA think that, what works for them works for everybody. Right. The sad thing is that we're really all on the same side of the table. We're all trying to help people get sober. And one of the things that I've always been trying to do is get people in a dialogue where people that say, hey, treatment centers are just there to make money and, that they don't do anything more than AA. And then I, show them, yes, they do. There's, medical detox involved. There's all sorts of different types of cognitive behavioral therapy and dialectical behavioral therapy. We can deal with underlying traumatic issues from people's lives that might have led to addiction. Some of that AA can do, but some of it can't. And it's, and even AA, it's in the book itself, it talks about.
Yeah, it says this might not be enough. Go seek outside help.
Exactly.
A lot of people miss that part. But
and then I get the other part where people come into our rehab and then they're like, I'll come into rehab, but I won't do AA. Right. And I'm like, okay, you don't have to do AA.
And it's always those people that become in love with it.
And they're the
ones.
They're the ones that end up going all the time.
It's really funny. But one of the things, and I listen, I don't want to knock any places that. But I was reading, about, I would like to get an understanding of other things. So I was trying to read about this smart recovery thing.
Right.
And I just find it such an oxymoron that it's called smart recovery.
Right.
And
well, smart recovery in Britain is actually a big business. They actually charge you to go. It's one of the few sort of treatment options in Britain where you actually pay, and you pay like this fee, and then you get all the information. and it's really cognitive behavioral therapy, sort of packaged into, for an alcoholic with certain terms like the beast, which has also been ripped off by other therapists, but who we won't mention. But so Smart Recovery it's not really a big program in the United States, but it's enormous in Britain. It's become really one of the big fee-for-service providers, which there's very few of in Britain because there's national health care. And
I got to say, like, even the name, it was like, remember when there was Rational Recovery?
Right.
Even that is sort of very, very an oxymoron type of name because there is nothing rational, and I always thought about that. There's nothing rational about getting, drinking and using, and it's very irrational, what you have to do to get sober sometimes. But I don't know if that made any sense the way I said that. But
once again, if these programs work for people,
yes.
I encourage them to go out there and try it.
If they work for the one or two, go for it.
Yeah, but I don't think they're the be all and end all.
Yeah.
And different things work for different people, and I think that's important to recognize.
And if you just tuned in, you are listening to KLEAN Radio. That's KLEAN with a K. You could give us a call at 800-222-5222. You could listen to all our past shows too. Go to Facebook/KLEAN Radio or go to KLEANradio.com. That's KLEAN with a K. And it's really cool because we have this amazing dialogue with people, and because this is one of the hardest things, and I say this a lot, it's a very hard topic to talk about, and we're constantly getting messages from people. And this past week, we would love to give everybody a scholarship, but we can't, and we're constantly getting people asking for help and doing, and asking.
It's actually heartbreaking. We give away, like I said, 10% of our beds, so that's what it's about 7 beds a month we're giving away for free.
Yeah.
And just the emails and letters I get are heartbreaking of people that are just like, it's my last chance to get help, and could you please help me? And
because the isolation that people feel, that people out there right now that are so close to picking up the phone, there's this isolation when you're using, and when you're in active addiction, that there's that isolation that you feel like the most alone person in the world.
One of the hardest things to do is call. They did a study where they showed that most people, it takes 7 years of being an alcoholic before they'll pick up the phone to ask for help. So, that's when I stress with people that work with us, that answer the phones and work with our people when they first call in, is that that one ring, if they miss that phone call, that might be 7 years of someone suffering finally trying to ask for help. So I understand how hard it is for people to call in, and even call into a radio show and talk about a problem, even though nobody knows who you are and whatever. But it's
and you could always use different names. I did that for a long time when I was drinking.
Who have you been, Judah?
Yeah, I told you, I used to tell women in Israel I was the first Jewish quarterback to play for Notre Dame.
Really?
Yes, and I thought it was a great pickup line that I used. And
did she actually buy it?
Well, this was over years I used this line, and it was a true story.
Okay, did anyone buy it?
No. Anybody that could see me knows I was not the first Jewish quarterback to play for Notre Dame, but it was actually very interesting because I saw this story in New York on the news about a guy that was a Jewish quarterback to play for. And
you just took the line.
Very interesting. I think I'll take that story. And but that's one of those things, because people, when they're drinking and using, always want to be somebody else.
Right.
Well,
part of addiction is lying, because you get used to sort of making excuses for the fact that you've been using and drinking, or, and trying to get around, trying to integrate, dysfunctional usage with a functional life. And so then when you get in the pattern of lying about addiction, you then tend to start lying about things that you don't even have to lie about.
Yeah.
Like crazy stuff.
Everything.
Why would you even lie about that? And it's just like all of a sudden you're a quarterback from Notre Dame, even though you're Jewish. So
yes, but there actually was a guy. His name was Ron Bernstein. To this day, I remember seeing it was like
Ron Bernstein. We have to have him in as a guest.
Yeah,
let him meet his doppelganger.
Let him meet the guy that stole his story.
Right.
And but that was the thing about using. But people always ask me, what's the gift of sobriety? One of the gifts of sobriety is that I have this contentment.
Right.
I'm okay with who I am.
Yeah.
And I know that sometimes a funny guy, but when I was drinking and using, and people that are going to understand this, I was never okay.
Yeah.
I always wanted to be somebody else. I'd always tell stories of I was this different person. It wasn't just, trust me, that was a funny guy I told, but I was, a Wall Street broker, so it was always somebody but me, and And apparently a lot of people have that too. And but now people say, who are you? I'm able to say this is who I am. This is what I do. And I think sobriety offers this amazing contentment. But here's the thing. There are a lot of people, and we get this all the time, people in their first year of sobriety. I want to tell people about their first year of sobriety. It's crazy. Okay? Yeah. It's up and down. It's like a roller coaster. And people don't understand that sometimes. We get this all the time from people going, why isn't it better yet? I have 90 minutes sober. Why am I not happy right now?
Right.
And I'm like, you were crazy for 30 years.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't get better in 2 weeks.
Well, one of the things also with addiction is that people become developmentally arrested at the point of when they start using, which means that basically when you start using, the age and the level of maturity that you were at when you started using, that's sort of where you are when you get sober. So if you started using at 14 and all of a sudden you're 30, 35, you're still working off of that early coping skills and early ability to function. So, it's something that you need to work at, but the sooner you can get sober, the sooner you can move on with your life. So
let's go to Kathy in Newport Beach. Welcome to KLEAN Radio, Kathy.
Thank you. Nice of you to give your time to people who desperately need some advice or help, whatever. But I have a son, and he didn't live near where I live with my rest of my family. He was up north, so didn't have much contact with him. Didn't know that he was really doing a lot of drugs and a lot of drinking. And so then he came back down to this area, down in Orange County, and was living with different ladies, and then finally his last lady friend kicked him out and said, no more. I won't put up with the lying, the cheating, the stealing, and the not working. All of those.
Yeah, addicts tend to be very good at finding people to enable their addiction.
To take hostage.
Yeah, they'll go out there and find people to use to, find a place to live and get their needs met. So
yes, they do. And what's so wonderful is that I thought that my son was the only one who did those things. And when I go to the meetings, which I advise every
you mean
parent,
Al-Anon?
You're going
meetings.
to Al-Anon?
Yes.
You know what? I'm so happy you say that, Kathy, because I often share this on the show that I used to tell my parents it cost $10 to go to AA meetings. And thank God they found Al-Anon, because they found that to not be the case. And I don't know if I would have been able to get sober had I had that $10 when I got sober this time. So
you know what I find they'll do? Just say and do just about anything.
Yeah.
Anything.
Right.
And my son was really raised in a nice family. We're really pretty good people. My husband and I weren't drinkers or smokers, and not that we were angels or anything, but we tried to be decent parents, and give our kids the fun in their life. And
addiction is a disease that's often said doesn't discriminate. It has nothing to do with how people are raised or what their social background are or anything else. And it's not the fault of the parents. Yeah. And it's not the fault of the addict.
And it's hard, though. Like for Kathy, it's hard when your son is in active addiction. You feel sometimes that it's just, it's a mirror of you, of what your family, what we do.
That's the first thing you do, yes.
Yeah, right. And there's a lot of guilt and shame.
Yeah. And embarrassment,
Embarrassment,
First thing you do is beat yourself up, but where did I go wrong? What did I do? What did I not do? What did I say?
Right, and beat up your son.
Yeah.
Right? How could you be doing this to me? What?
Yeah, well, that's what you do, the poor me phase. Right. You go through all of those because it brings out all the emotions when it's your child,
And when you feel helpless.
You totally feel helpless. And so I went to the meetings, and I highly recommend everyone to go
to Al-Anon.
If they can.
And Al-Anon, what's Al-Anon's website? Al-Anon.org?
Yeah.
And I agree with you, Kathy, and it's something we tell callers all the time. It's something we tell mothers go to Al-Anon. You don't have to do this by yourself.
So, Kathy, how's it working with your son now? Has there been any progress?
Well, he was for 35 days. When his wife, a lovely, beautiful, well-educated person, sweetheart, everybody loved her. They were the dynamic duo. He's got a great personality, a lot of fun, and he's worked his way through life by being funny and making people laugh and being charming and sweet and dear, and underneath all of that he He was like Pagliacci.
By the way, if
you
so,
know-
the listeners, I'm not Kathy's son.
No. we're coming close there, right?
Yeah. So you lost me at the Pagliacci part. I don't have that talent.
Yeah, like Pagliacci.
Yeah.
He was like they're crying on the inside,
Yeah,
you know,
well, that,
and putting on this, making people laugh, and look how cute he is and how charming. Even at a meeting a couple of months ago, I have to share this with you because it's funny. I try to go as many meetings as I can. You have to be supportive. You can't tell them, you need to do this, you need to do that, if you don't do it yourself.
Right.
So I went with him, and they went around the room, and people were telling their story, which is really so enlightening and so wonderful to hear it. It's a place where no one judges. You don't go in there and somebody says, well, why did you do that? How come you did that? And you know, where did you go? And what did you... No, none of that. Nobody asked any questions, which is really a beautiful thing. It's just like a confession time. You know, I've done this and I've done that. No one challenges you like you've been challenged maybe in your life. But Charlie wrote a song because we have a musical family. And he wrote the words to his addiction, about his addiction. And I wish I had a copy. I would sing them.
Well, we don't really have time for that, but you can post it on our Facebook page. You know, if you
Absolutely,
ever
or
do.
if there's a video of him.
Yeah, please post that on our Facebook page. But how's Charlie doing now? Is he sober?
Well, I thought he was. He got out, and they advised him to go to a sober living house, and he didn't like where any of them were. You know, he's been used to the good life,
Right.
Champagne appetite with a beer pocketbook. But he has been, you know, people have been, okay, come on, Charlie. He gets invited to all the parties because he's fun. Anyway,
Right.
he sang the song, and he got an applause. The whole room applauded. And the counselor even said it. He said, we never show any demonstrative appearances like that. It's just very quiet, very low key. And she was shocked herself because everybody applauded because he sang it and beat it to like a bongo, because he plays bongos, and he was like boom 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 boom, and he was singing the song to the what his addiction was. Anyway, very, very clever. But anyway, I want to thank you guys for being there.
And Kathy,
you know what,
thank
Kathy?
you.
One thing I would recommend is go to KLEANradio.com.
Yeah.
There's in our first season we had Bob Forrest on, who's also was on Celebrity Rehab, and was there were 3 bands that were supposed to come out of LA that all were about to be signed. There was the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Jane's Addiction, and a band called Thelonious Monster. And Bob Forrest was the lead singer of that band, still is actually, but his problems with heroin and alcohol destroyed the band, and he has a really compelling story, and it's archived on our website. You can go back and watch that show. It's a really good show.
Okay, the KLEAN radio number is 888-601.
6040.
Right, that's to the treatment center for if you're trying to get some help.
Yeah, and listen, you know, even if it's, you know, Andrew always talks about, it's something we always talk about, you know, it's always important, like, you know, and I was sharing this before with my father. My parents, you know, had rehabs, like, numbers, you know, waiting for me to go, you know, and for that one call, for that one time that I would call my family up and say I need help. And there was that day that I actually did that finally, where I called my parents and they said, okay, get on the, you know, and that was it. You know, my last drink was in the Arizona airport, and before I flew back to New York. Not a fun place to be drinking. And
Was it a beer?
it was a beer.
It was a beer.
And it was half a beer. And
you didn't finish
I
it?
didn't finish it. And
Wow.
it's
That's
one of
unusual.
I got to tell you, because it's one of the most visuals I've ever had, because for years I used to go to these 12-step meetings in different, you know, they have these clubs called like the Triangle Club, the Oasis Club. And I used to see this older man sitting over half a beer, and he looked depressed. And I used to look at this guy and go, why is he depressed? He still has half a beer.
Right.
And I was that guy with that half a beer, realizing there was, no matter how much I had.
Yeah, the answer isn't at the bottom of the glass.
So, Kathy, there is hope for your son. I promise you that. Just stay in touch.
The only thing when he got out of rehab, just very quickly, I need to ask you, he borrowed my car one night because his truck was being fixed, and he was going to give an estimate on a job or something. I go, okay. And they say, never do that. Don't give him your credit card. Don't give him any money. Don't loan him your car. don't give bus fare, don't do anything. And I stupidly, said, okay, all right, you need the car, okay. So the next day, I get my car, and I see this little paper bag under my seat, and it's got those two little vodka, the tiny little ones that you can buy.
Yeah,
right.
The airline ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, two little plastic bottles, both empty. So I took the bag in the house, and I said, Charlie, come here. We need to talk about something. And I held up the bag, and he said, I just wanted to see if I could drink it and not do it. He said, I got really sick. And I'd love to believe him, but you know what? He's gotten me to the point where I don't believe.
Yeah, and you shouldn't, the Kathy, the old joke is, how an addict is lying.
Well, the point is, he's already sick. Too.
Yeah,
that's the point. He has alcoholism,
right,
which is a disease, and part of the disease is that there's this overwhelming compulsion to drink despite the consequences.
And it's like left up, and it's not. That's what people don't understand. We're running out of time, but that's Kathy. Thank you so much for the call. Give us a call back next week and let us know how he's doing.
Thank you. I will. It's very nice to know there are other people around that can share your feelings, because it's really really a terrible, terrible thing. And I was saying to a friend, they have liquor. One whole side of your supermarket is alcohol.
Kathy, to be continued next week. We really have to run.
It sounds like you're a great mother. Keep on trying, and we look forward to hopefully speaking with you again next week.
And what she's talking about is it's what Kathy's going through right now is what so many mothers in America right now are going through, and I'm so happy for her, Andrew, that she's found Al-Anon, to get help with. But
because everybody's affected, and it's often easy just to identify the addict as the person that needs all the help. And the truth of the matter is the addict affects the family and friends so much that all people need help when dealing with someone that's that ill.
And the courage that she had to call right now, and I'm amazed by it, because she's helping so many people out there know they're not alone.
Yep.
That there are other Kathys. And we are running out of time, but give us a call at 888-601-6040. That's 888-601-6040. Save that number. Even if you don't give that number a call tonight,
Right, that's our treatment line.
Yeah, that's our treatment center number, and it's absolutely free to give it a call. And like I said, my parents did have those numbers when I was out there drinking, the emergency rehab number. Right. And I thank God they found it. And I want to say...
Can't believe the show went so fast, Judah.
To our mothers, happy Mother's Day. Thank God no longer are they worrying about us in certain ways.
Right.
And that's the best gift I could give my mother, is that she could sleep tonight. Not worried about that crazy call. It might be a different crazy call.
It'll be a different crazy call.
But it's not that crazy call that I was drunk.
It would be that you're playing quarterback for Notre Dame.
To Notre Dame. To everybody out there, thank you very much. The discussion continues at KLEANradio.com.
Are you struggling with an addiction that's ruining your life? Want to have a confidential conversation with a professional that will immediately assist you? Do you suspect a loved one is abusing drugs and would like a free drug testing kit and consultation? KLEAN Treatment Center is standing by right now to help those with addictions and the people who care about them. Call 888-601-6040. That's 888-601-6040. Or go to KLEAN Treatment Center, that's clean with a K, KLEANTreatmentCenter.com.